MXGP, the podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the MXGP official podcast with me, Paul Malin, and Jason Thomas from Fly Racing, where we've just come off the back of round 5 of the FIM Motocross World Championship, the MXGP of Trentino. And now we prepare to go into a 1-month break. The next round won't be until the end of May in the MXGP of France at La Capelle-Marival. And so, just to let you know, we're recording this just after Trentino, and Jason and I are going to basically cover what's happened over the last sort of 4 races, because the last time we touched base with you guys was after Argentina, before Spain, and obviously there's a lot happened since then. But rather than break down everything round by round, it's going to be a generic chat about what we've seen and that kind of thing. So without further ado, let me welcome my co-host, Jason Thomas, Fly Racing. Good to see you. You know what? It's been a busy time for you, hasn't it? What are you, in between Cleveland and Philadelphia? You've got 3 rounds to go. 1 point in it between Hunter Lawrence and Ken Roczen in 450 Monster Energy Supercross. Hayden Deegan's won the West Coast. Cole Davis is currently leading the 250 East Coast. There's a lot been going on since our last chat.
Yeah, busy days over here. Kind of juggling, wrapping up this Supercross Championship, thinking about Pro Motocross. Also, the next MXGP round that the gate drops for, I will be there with you in La Capelle. So yeah, for me, it's incredibly busy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. This is kind of my life, and for good or for bad, I identify with racing as what kind of keeps me going. So the busier we are, I think the better for me. But yes, to your point, crazy times and crazy days ahead.
Well, talking about, the busier we are, the better it is. Same for me. I'm already on Wednesday as we record this podcast after Trentino. I've got a month off. I'm already twiddling my thumbs, wondering what to do next. But at least you're still on the road. Yep. How has the racing been over there? As we said, the points gap has narrowed now between Hunter and Kenny. Cooper Webb is still not out of it. He's mathematically still there, isn't he? But talk about the top 2, and also Cooper Webb realistically is 3rd now, barring any mistakes, really what he's kind of looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, especially for the subject of this podcast. The 2 riders that are battling for the Monster Energy Supercross Championship are MX2 or MXGP graduates, right? Like, they were products of racing this MXGP series with Hunter Lawrence and Ken Roczen, and throw Cole Davies as another international superstar coming over for New Zealand. So it's interesting to think about. Yes, you have this American-based championship, and both series are calling themselves a world championship, probably rightfully so when you look at the entry lists, look at how much international flair there is. But yeah, it's very much around the globe talent showing up on the weekends now. And I don't know where this series is going to go. Every single time, it's in the 450 class anyway, I think that I have it kind of figured out, and I'm like, okay, I finally wrapped my head around this. I know where we're headed. Yeah, racing deals you a completely different scenario and shows you how foolish you may be. But that's why we love racing so much. The unpredictability of racing is one of the greatest aspects of it. We try to tell the fans that so much, is like, this is one sport where the favorites are likely to let you down, in some way or another. There's just that's the miracle of racing.
Well, the latest rider over on your side of the pond, Eli Tomac, taking a bit of a hard hit. Is he going to be back for the final 3 races?
I think, there's no certainty with Eli. He kind of plays his cards pretty close to the chest there. But my guess would be Miss Philly and be back for his home race in Denver and then finish in Salt Lake. Had an MRI on Monday. I think that was all clear, but he is pretty beat up. So to see him skip a race where he has to basically fly across the country, it's about a 5-hour flight. I could see him skipping that. There's weather in the forecast. So none of that sounds like he would want to participate in. So yeah, to answer your question, I think he'll be back for the last 2 and then Pro Motocross.
Cool. Well, obviously from our side, as we said, we've just had 4 races in the last 5 weeks. Andalucia, a brand new venue, right in the southwest of Spain, close to Seville. We were in Frauenfeld in Switzerland, where we had a little bit of rain ourselves. We had a week off, and then we went to the Italian island of Sardinia, just off the west coast of Italy, and then we've just come back from Trentino, the north of Italy. So, there's been a lot to unpack, and obviously, if we're going to sort of break down the championship and the riders and things like that, let's start at the top. Lucas Coenen has seen a 14-point lead slip this past weekend. Jeffrey Herlings has closed in on him. But Lucas Coenen, first of all, the Red Bull KTM rider has been flying, hasn't he? Because after Argentina, which was an off weekend for him, the rider who finished second in the World Championship last year, he hit Andalucia, went 1-1 on Sunday. Probably would have gone 1-1 in Switzerland had he not had that derailed chain. He won again in one of the races in Sardinia, or both the races in Sardinia, so he won 5 from the 6 races from those 3 rounds. The kid, when he's firing, is going to be a tough rider to beat, and Trentino obviously was one of those off weekends for him, but prior to that, we saw something special from the young 19-year-old.
Yeah, he's special, in a word, and who knows where the World Championship ends up. You don't know if he's going to win or lose. Of course, there's so much racing left to be done, but this is really the step that you wanted to see from him in year 2 of MXGP. You didn't want to see him kind of take a step back or continue on with some of the traits that we've seen. And yes, it would be easy to point to Trentino, the latest round, and say, well, there still is. There's the mistakes. There's the crashes. Yeah, tip overs, not such a big deal. He's also finding ways to recover from those. Even on a difficult weekend, he still wins the qualifying race on Saturday. He's able to get third in the second one, crashing out of the lead. So I really like what I see from this kid. Is it perfect? No. But again, he's 19 years old. To expect perfection at 19 in your second year at MXGP is, I think, a bit foolish as well. Yeah. So there's a lot to like with this kid, and I think we're watching either the emergence or the arrival of a superstar globally. He is the real deal.
Yeah, as I said, the lead being cut by 10 points. Jeffrey Herlings has obviously been the rider that has closed down that gap. Jeffrey Herlings winning the first round in Argentina. He went 1-1. He won again. So going into this break, he's kind of, won the first and the fifth rounds. And actually on paper, he has probably been the most consistent in that he's not finished outside of the top 3 in the races that he's finished. Another rider who fell victim to that left-hand turn in Switzerland, that the deep rut that dislodged chains on Mathis Valin, on Andrea Adamo, on Lucas, on Jeffrey. Very bizarre set of circumstances. But when you sort of look at the Sunday races, he has definitely been the most consistent, the one that's finishing in the top 3, apart from that one DNF. What have you made of his sort of first 5 rounds for Honda HRC Petronas? Because we've said it in the beginning, he looked a little strange on the bike, but now we're kind of getting used to it. He's looking more like his familiar self, and he's got that bike working in the way that Jeffrey Herlings needs that bike to work.
I mean, it's impossible to not be impressed. And that's talking about someone who 110 GPs or whatever he's won now at
14.
Yeah. To be impressed by him is difficult. And yet still here I am because I wasn't sure how this was going to go. He switches to, this Honda program, and that it's completely, everything's changed. New engineers, new team, new surroundings, new, motorcycle nuances. And yet this is one of the best versions of him that we've seen. And it's impossible to, the 2017, 2018 Jeffrey is a whole different conversation, but that's a decade ago. Right. And whether he keeps racing in the next couple of years, he's still in the twilight of his career, full stop. And to be this good and this consistent is not what I expected. And I'll just say on the front end, I expect him to be this good moving forward until or if we get that headline on either a weekend or a Tuesday where Jeffrey had a crash and there's a small injury, or, I'm just going to be optimistic. But that's been the narrative over the last several years, is it's been phenomenal until it's not. And one of those crashes, or just it doesn't even have to be his fault. Something can go wrong with the motorcycle, and that derails a championship run.
Well, he did have one of those big crashes in the first turn on a Saturday in Andalucia, and he didn't brake there.
Yep.
So, he's, the regular Jeffrey Herlings glass has obviously been toughened for 2026.
Yeah. And,
he's still in the fight after 5 rounds,
Yeah. And I love watching this guy race. We're watching a legend perform, a rider that will be talked about for generations. We're getting to witness that. So I hope he makes every round, but that's the only concern I have. The performance, everything else is there. It's just, can he have the continuity that will let him be in this championship when we get to the flyaways at the end of the series? That's really the only question I have left. All the other questions he's answered. Starts are there, which is incredible, right? That's been one of the issues he's had. Those seem to be fixed. It's, can he stay healthy? Because if he is healthy, he's going to be in the championship fight when we're in September.
But he has given props to Lucas, hasn't he? He's sort of on a regular basis certainly in Andalucia and Switzerland, he's basically sort of said, and also in Sardinia in the sand. Lucas is faster than me. He was stronger than me today. I didn't have anything for him today. So we've got a mature Jeffrey Herlings who is basically, very aware of who he is, but also aware of his surroundings at the moment within MXGP. He's in his 30s. Lucas is 19 years old. And when you look at the stats on paper, in terms of the top two, Lucas with 2 podiums, both of those from the top step. Jeffrey with 4 podiums, he's gone 1-2 at rounds 1 and 2. 2-1 at round 4 and 5. It was only in Switzerland where he missed the podium because of that derail chain, the same as Lucas Coenen finishing 8th there. Jeffrey was 10th. But I think, what we've seen so far between those two, definitely, as long as both riders stay healthy, we're going to be in for another one of those, dare I say, kind of 2021 championship battles where we had 3 riders, Romain Febvre, Jeffrey Herlings, Tim Gajser, going sort of for that championship in MXGP. It's been great to watch at the moment, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I like to watch the human development side because I think Jeffrey now understands that he could walk away tomorrow and his legacy is set. He's going down as an all-timer in this championship. Financially, he's set. Legacy, he's set. So he doesn't have that insecurity where I think 5 or 10 years ago, there's no way he would have looked over and said, yeah, Lucas is riding incredibly well. He was better. He would just not have done that, right? I just think there's too much competitiveness. And, I come back to this word insecurity. As you get older, you realize Lucas Coenen is not going to change how Jeffrey is remembered or what his career is going to look like or what his financial future is going to look like. So you can give credit when it's deserved. And I think that, there's a human element to that story where the arc of Jeffrey's personality has significantly changed over the 10 years. And it's, I think, a great thing to see because now he can be a little bit more honest and a little bit more transparent, where before it was, I'm the best. No one else is even close, regardless of what the results are. And I don't know. I don't think there's a lot to be gained from that. This is a much more likable Jeffrey, for lack of a better word.
What have you seen sort of from a technical side of things with the setup of the KTM and the Honda? Have you seen anything where one has an advantage over the other at any kind of surface or not? Do you think they're about even? And can you see both teams, let's say, kind of doing anything to improve over the next 3-4 weeks? Yeah,
it's an interesting question because here in the States, we have this production rule where they're pretty limited on the things they can change. So you really see the nuance and the tendencies of motorcycles show up. They're easy to identify. They stay pretty consistent because the teams and the riders are kind of in this box with what the factories provide for them. And yes, they can make adjustments, but not enough where I think MXGP, and I'm surmising a little bit, I'm guessing a little bit, they have more adjustability. So say the bike doesn't do something very well in stock trim, they can change a lot of that, right? They have, these guys are on 27 models or maybe even forward from there, where if the bike doesn't do something well, let's change that. Let's work around that. So I don't know that I see so many things that that's the Honda tendency, because they can change it, right? They can modify the frame. They can do whatever they want to remove that tendency. Or if Jeffrey wants a certain thing, guess what? They can build the motorcycle in a fashion to accommodate that. Where in the US, there's a lot of just, hey man, this is what the bike is. Figure out a way to ride it. We only have so many things we can change, whether it's resource wise or rule wise. So I don't see it as much in MXGP. I see all the bikes being really having a great foundation. Like, look at Romain Febvre. He doesn't seem to have issues with his motorcycle, where in the US, you see a lot of problems. Well, I'm going to say problems, but a lot of riders having concerns with the Kawasaki, not being able to gel with the Kawasaki. And I don't even think they've gotten to a place where that's sorted yet, where you don't hear any of that from Romain Febvre. So it's two completely different dynamics depending on which series you're in.
Yeah, and actually I was talking to somebody at KTM the weekend, because obviously they have this cycle that, they run their race bike for 3 years and then obviously they move on to the next model. And I asked that question, and this will be the last sort of generation of the bike that they're using now. So whatever Lucas is running now, they will be racing the 2028 bike in 2027. Okay. I did ask if they'll be introducing it towards the end of the season and things like that. Now, normally that would be if everything is okay and you're looking like you're winning, you're in a comfortable position, why not, know? But I think if you're in a situation where let's just stick with what we've got because this is too tight to call, then, they'll probably stay with where they're at. Honda are obviously already running a new bike. Kawasaki, I think they've got a year or two left with their thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. What about Lucas Coenen, just real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Does he need to do anything to improve? Obviously, he had an off weekend at the weekend. Yes, the qualifying race, he was the back was against the wall a little bit, even though he won it. But silly little mistakes cost him in the races when it mattered. The tip over from second in race 1, the one where he tipped over from the lead in race 2. Do you think they were just moments of lapses of concentration, or maybe do you think he was just pushing too hard to make a statement?
Yeah, I think he was pushing a little bit. When he was out front, even on Saturday, you could see just small mistakes, which are not really his tendency on the 450. And I think he has such a burst of intensity that he can throw at it that I think he always wants to do that. And both he and his brother, they want to win every single time out, and not winning is failure to them. And I think Lucas is coming around to understanding to win a championship, you don't have to win every single time. The key is to...
And you don't have to win by a week either.
Right. You need to be on the podium. You need to take the wins when they're available. But what you can't do are what happened in race 1, where you crash and you're up front and then you drop back to 25th and you have to work back to 12th. Like, those are really punitive. So I think as he's maturing, he will understand when it's needed to put in all the intensity and really go for it, and when it's okay to kind of let the first few laps sort themselves out. Because what he has is he does have a speed edge over a lot of these guys. When they're battling, like, you can see he's a little bit quicker. So knowing when to employ that and knowing when to kind of lay up is, I think, an acquired skill. And I think he just wants to be full noise all the time. And I think over time he will learn that that's not really the best way to go about it. That will get you in more trouble than you really need to. Like, if you are behind on speed and you're not as quick as the other guys, yeah, I think you probably have to do that. You have to just go for it. He's in a very advantageous position where he doesn't have to do that. So he can pick and choose where he wants to put in. In Jeffrey's best years, Jeffrey will lay up, wait till the last 5 or 10 minutes, and then drop the hammer and pass everybody, right? He has kind of mastered that, where he knows, like, I have more speed than them. I don't have to force it. Just like he did with Vialle earlier in the season. You can wait until the time is right and then make your pass. He did the same thing to Febvre. I think Lucas will learn that, and he will learn that it's acceptable to kind of lay up, learn where their lines are, learn where they may be a little bit quicker, and then have the confidence to know that when it's time to go, you're still going to be quicker than them, and then you can just go at the end. I think that's where he will end up. It's a process. It just, that doesn't happen overnight.
I think he doesn't want to get caught in that leaving everything to chance in the last few laps, 10 minutes. I think he's just one of those, put it all in the 10 minutes in the beginning, build up a 10 or 15 second gap, and then just try and manage that. But sometimes the mind can wander as well. Yeah,
sometimes I think that's okay, right? If you're not having to push and you can just pull away early, fine. But taking outsized risk in the beginning to do that, I don't think is a winning play. And it comes down to he's going to learn to trust himself more as he matures. And that's where the trust is like being able, like when Jeffrey let Tom, well, I don't say let, but when Tom Vialle passed Jeffrey a few weeks ago and he said, okay, let me figure out where he's a little bit quicker, kind of suss those lines out and then just moved right back past him. That's trust. Jeffrey trusts himself in that moment. And I think that's just maturity and a lot of experience that Lucas doesn't necessarily have yet.
Yeah. Talking of Tom Vialle, the second of the Honda HRC Petronas riders, third in the championship, 25 points-ish off the lead, less than a handful off of his teammate. He's been a bit of a dark horse, hasn't he, and a revelation in this MXGP category. Nobody really knew what to expect with him. I'm not saying anybody wrote him off, but we could see from sort of training videos pre-season that, he's got a grip of this bike. I guess the only question mark was, does he have the fitness, for the 2-day format now, having been in America for the last 3 years, where just race day for outdoors has just been the one Saturday. And now he's obviously got a free practice, a time practice, a qualifying race of 25 minutes. Does he put everything into that? And then 2 30-minute 30 plus 2s on a Sunday. But, so far, Tom Vialle has impressed, I think, everybody.
Oh, I've been, incredibly impressed. I did not expect anywhere near any of this. I kind of thought he would be in the fight with a lot of other guys that are kind of on the outside looking in on the backside of the top 5 a lot. I did think that his starting prowess would put him in position to succeed. So there would be some podium finishes in there because, listen, he's a 2-time MX2 champ and he's a great starter. So he's going to find himself in good position. But I thought he'd be in there with Adamo and a lot of other guys. Kai, there's a ton of guys that are all, aiming for the same positions that there can only be a few. But he's been better than I expected. Full, all the way around, full marks for him. Even though, like he had a crash in Trentino and all those things, but the bright moments have far surpassed the disappointing moments in 2026. So I give him a lot of credit. He's been better than I expected. Not that he cares what I think, but what a great start to what I was unsure of how the season was going to go.
3 podiums, a third at round 1, a win in Switzerland round 3, and third again on the weekend. And actually, one thing that's impressed me is when he has been passed, he's been right there still, not wanting to give up, pushing all the way to the end. He had that one mistake in that corner, the far corner and the right-hander in Trentino on the weekend, which actually looked pretty ugly. Could have ended a lot worse, but he picked himself up, maybe lost a couple of positions, came back again to salvage that podium. So he's got tenacity, he's determined, he's definitely got speed. There's nothing wrong with his fitness. And the mindset of a two-time, East Coast Supercross champion, obviously a 2-time world champion as well. All of those things are now coming sort of to the fore, aren't they? We're seeing him as the real deal again.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of, I felt like this was the right decision, but I think a lot of people were like, you're going back to MXGP, there was a lot of uncertainty about this. And I'm sure he spent a lot of time thinking about, is this the right move? Am I making a mistake? It seems like it's working out, right? And Giacomo Garibaldi has to be thrilled with what he's seen from him, kind of taking a flyer on him. Even though he's had so much success, you don't know what this is going to look like, right? He's been gone for a few years. All the way around, this has been a success, and I have no reason to think that it won't get better from here. He's already answered. I had questions about what this was going to look like. I really don't anymore. Is he going to win the world championship? Probably not, but that's okay. I think he's going to be a podium guy off and on from here on out. Like I'm kind of done with the second guessing of this whole idea.
What about Tim? Tim Gajser is up to 4th now in the championship. Obviously, a lot was written and spoken about and all that kind of thing at the start of the season with the 2 5-time world champions, Jeffrey Herlings moving from KTM to Honda, Tim from Honda to Yamaha. There was all the bench racing stuff back and forth. And, with the sort of, even though Tim's season didn't start badly, sort of 4th overall at the opening round, not bad. Couple of podiums straight away, one in Spain, one in Switzerland. He was 8th overall in Sardinia, obviously because of that crash in race 2, as he was just pushing and finding his level within the track. And obviously he gets a race win on the weekend and gets a second at a place that he was a 6-time winner at previously. Steps in the right direction. What have you made of Tim's sort of season to this point?
Well, it had been a little underwhelming. I hold Tim in a really high regard. I expect him to be in the podium fight all the time. But that's just what we've come to expect from him. That's the kind of expectation I believe he deserves. And there were times where he really wasn't in that fight. He was just on the outside looking in, didn't look like he could do a whole lot about it. So I really felt like Trentino was incredibly important because he's been so proficient there. And if you can't step up and deliver at the tracks where you're expected to, that's a problem. Like you have to capitalize on the races that are advantageous for you. And if you can't do well at the tracks that are good for you, how are you going to do anything in this championship otherwise? So that was a big moment. We learned after, and I learned even from your wife, Nikki, there about his injury. He was dealing with a lot of pain on the weekend. So I thought that was a big moment for him to really, he can take that momentum and kind of catapult from there, use that as a stepping stone to go chase this championship now, because we know he can do it. He's been in the championship fight certainly more times than not. But I was kind of waiting for this breakout moment where he showed us the Tim Gajser of old. And I think we saw it on Sunday. So now he's got a month to let that fester, let those positive thoughts kind of build. Hopefully he's healthy enough to continue training and improving because everybody else is going to. But I thought in the arc of this championship, that was a huge moment.
Big moment. And actually, I was going to say, you just mentioned it though. Nobody really let on as to how sort of secondhand and beat up Tim was after his crash in Sardinia, because obviously it was just one of those that just caught him unexpected, threw him down awkwardly, looked like the airbag deployed and did its job. So it could have been maybe far worse than it actually was. But to then come back round the clock sort of physio and treatment, coming into what is the closest, and then what he calls his home Grand Prix, and not 100%, a venue where you've won 6 times at and taken race wins and GP wins, and to dig deep in that second race actually was very, very impressive, I think, because we saw in the qualifying race he was there and then just kind of faded. How much of that was because of injuries? Don't know. The first race, was there or thereabouts. The second one, he came out firing on all cylinders and he made it known. You saw the determination. Once he got to third and second and then push for the lead. Yes, Lucas fell from the lead. But prior to that, his intent was, I want to win this race if I can, or, at least be on the podium. And that fight that's got him to those 5 world titles kind of was there for all to see. And I hope that, I think, there's been a couple of post-race interviews where he's just sort of said, we've still got work to do. We're still learning the bike and we're still improving and this kind of thing. He is one of those guys that is going to use this break with the team just to ride and test and get everything to a level again where they can hopefully make another step and just be in it right from the very first lap in time practice in the qualifying race. Because if we get that and we've got 3, 4, 5 guys fighting for a title, we're going to be in for a good sort of, 13, 14 races still to come.
Yeah, and I think these next few, Trentino kind of started it, but these hard-packed tracks that are next up on the calendar, he needs to capitalize on those. Because when we get to the sand, you would think that he may give some points back. So he needs to take every advantage of this time off, improve, come out swinging in France. I don't know the next round after that, but Germany's somewhere in there too. Like he needs to make the most.
It's France, Germany, Latvia. So
there you go. Yep. So he needs to make up some points. He's going to have, basically 6 races on hard pack. And that doesn't mean that, Coenen, and look how good Jeffrey's been in the hard pack so far. So nothing is assured, but you're thinking about how do you build a picture to win this championship, right? How do you strategize to win this championship? Well, you have to lean into your strengths. And it really feels like Trentino was the first of 3 rounds where he has an opportunity to do that. And yeah, he's a protagonist in this championship that we really haven't talked about enough. But I think rightfully so. He hadn't been doing a lot to earn that, but now he's back. And the last thing that I think, Jeffrey and Lucas and these guys want is a fully fit, healthy, and championship level Tim Gajser.
What about Romain Febvre? On paper, 5th, 40 points off the lead. Hasn't done a lot wrong. The crash in the second race in Andalucia obviously hurt him points-wise because he was challenging. He was in third with Tim Gajser challenging him. So obviously losing potentially 20 points, maybe 18. So that puts him, a little bit sort of in the hunt. And then obviously on the weekend, the qualifying race was a strange one. He had a technical problem, an electrical issue, Antti told me on Sunday morning. And, the one weekend when we've got 40 riders on the grid in MXGP, he never completed that first lap, or it was the start of the second lap, and all of a sudden he's going to go into the line 38th, which Trentino, long straight into 180 left, you're already over on the right-hand side. 2 things that struck me, and I don't know if another Kawasaki rider pulled out of a gate to let him in, but miraculously he found a gate about 12 gates over. And I think I said it in the commentary, would you believe it? Romain Febvre goes and gets a whole shot, you know what I mean? So against all of that backdrop on Saturday, he comes out and leads the way. But then the second one, he was gate 38, whatever. There was no chance of getting over, so his race was pretty much scuppered, 12th in the second one. But on the whole, not riding too badly, but I think from what I've seen, just missing a bit of intensity that we saw from him last year. What would you think?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And man, that has to be a really difficult thing to wake up to on Sunday, knowing you're going to be 38th pick twice. That getting that gate pick in the first one and then executing on top of it and getting the whole shot was incredible. Like, what a performance. I don't know how he got that gate. Scientists will study that for generations, how he ended up with that gate. But he made the most of it. And yes, you could say he's a little off the pace and not really getting the job, but he's hanging around. He's going to have to put some race wins in here. He's going to have his home GP next weekend. If he wants to be a serious contender, just like I talked about with Tim Gajser, these tracks that suit you when you get to your home GPs, the ones that you should perform at, you're going to have to. Like, if he can't go out and be in the fight to win some of these rounds where his skill set is really going to be front and center, it's not going to work. It's just not going to be a championship type year. But I think it's been okay. It's been a good enough year. But that all depends on what the expectation is. If it's to win back-to-back championships, then yeah, you could say it hasn't been quite good enough. And that hasn't been his fault. No. An electrical problem, not his fault. You could say the crash, a couple weeks ago, sure. But I haven't felt like this has been a huge disappointment from Febvre. We've seen flashes from him, but we have a really deep field at the front is the problem. That in essence is the problem. Is it's not just he and Lucas in 2026. There's a whole other list of riders that can get in between you and the leader now if you're not having a great race. And you can lose a lot of points in a hurry.
And actually, when you look at the first 5 rounds in terms of the overalls, no one has been really, really consistent apart from Jeffrey. And I'm going to read you now. So from rounds 1 to 5, Lucas Coenen, 5th in Argentina. He was on the top step in Spain, in Andalucia. 8th overall because of a thrown chain in Switzerland. He was on the top step again in Sardinia. 7th overall in Trentino. Then you got Jeffrey, 1, 2, 10. 2-1. That 10th because of a thrown chain could have been another podium. Tom Vialle, he's had 3 podium, but he's gone 3, 6, 1, 7, 3. So there's a lot of inconsistency there. Even Tim, 4, 3, 3, 8, 2. And then Romain, only 1 podium this year. And that was the opening round, 2nd overall. And then he was obviously 8th, partly because of that crash in the 2nd race in Andalucia. 5th in Switzerland, he just wasn't good enough. 4th in Sardinia, same. And then 6th overall the weekend, not helped by that 38th gate pick in the 2nd race. But when you look at that on the balance, there's a lot of room for riders to capitalize on other riders' inconsistencies, isn't there?
Well, think about, okay, let's say a race like Andalucia. Lucas goes out, wins the race, looks phenomenal. Or Sardinia, for example.
Yeah.
And say Roman doesn't have his best day. Let's compare 25 to 26. In 26, you could have Jeffrey, Tom, Kai, Andrea Adamo, Tim Gajser. That I'm just counting off the top of my head. That's 5 guys that are all incredibly gifted. You could be having a decent day, and the guy that's winning the race, and you could have 5 riders in between you from a year ago, and you not even do anything wrong. You just wasn't a perfect day. That is a very different dynamic, and it can work a lot of different directions. It could, like just like Lucas in race 1 in Trentino, getting 12th. There's a lot more competitiveness in the front group of the peloton than there was a year ago. So you have to hit your marks. You can lose a lot of points in a hurry and not really do a whole lot wrong, just not have your best day. So it's a very different championship dynamic all around this year.
Yeah. 2 other riders that have got podiums before we move on to MX2. Maxime Renault, he was 2nd overall in Switzerland. Tim was 3rd. So obviously it was a double podium for Yamaha. And Kai de Wolf got his 3rd overall in Sardinia 2 rounds ago. Just want to ask you about the double podium in Switzerland for Yamaha, because you were saying in one of our earlier podcasts that you think the team like Yamaha, who've had so much success, needs to be one of those that makes another step, whether that comes with Tim or with Maxime. Have you seen enough at the moment to feel that they are making that step in the right direction, or are you still a little bit, still on the fence?
No, I think they're going the right direction, for sure. Have they arrived at the place where they want to be? No, but I don't know that that's true for anybody. Every team is still chasing things all the time. But you really just wanted to see signs of progress. And I think you're seeing them. And I think, Tim's experience and Tim's excellence racing, they're both working hand in hand. Tim has probably brought new ideas to the table that are say, hey, my prior team, we had the ability to do this. And when in this situation, we could go this direction. So it's probably both sides helping each other get to a place where they want to be. But yeah, to your question, of course, winning race 2 in Trentino was a huge step. And it doesn't have to always be, are you seeing signs of technical improvement? It can just be on a sentiment level. The team, when you struggle for a really long amount of time, it's hard to kind of drag yourself out of like, we're having a tough time here. Or is there ever going to be light at the end of the tunnel? And then you go win a race and you're like, everybody's happier. Everybody's motivated. Everybody wants to go to work on Monday. That stuff I think is infectious. It's contagious. And it can really kind of catch fire when you see like, oh, it is working. Oh, all of this effort, all of these late, nights that we're putting in, we're starting to see signs of progress there. To me, that can be just as important as a technical breakthrough is, just the vibes around the truck, for lack of a better term, improve. And then things start to go your direction. And you have the talent now. Not that Maxime isn't a great rider, but he's not Tim Gajser. He's, not a multi-time world champion, just to be fair. So they have everything in place now, and it seems like the missing ingredients they're starting to come find.
Has there anybody else kind of surprised you in MXGP this year outside of those top runners, or not really? Like Ruben Fernandez, for instance, the Ducatis or whatever.
Yeah, I'm still kind of waiting on the arrival of some of these. Like I'm still waiting for a breakout ride from one of the Ducati guys. We really haven't seen that quite yet. So, I want to see more from Kai de Wolf. We're starting to see it. It's starting to show up from Kai. He's like, when he's at the front, he's able to stay in the front. He's got more fight. So I think there is more development to come. I think Kai, especially when we get later in the championship, Kai's going to be hopefully fully healthy. We get into the sand rounds. Kai's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Don't judge.
Might even be next month.
Yeah.
Be in France.
Don't judge Sardinia off of what Kai's going to do. He was just basically able to race at that point. So I think there are storylines to come that we really haven't seen yet, just because it's early in riders' development. I don't think the complete story of Andrea Adamo has been written either. He is getting better and better and better. And I think if he gets his fitness to a place where it's on the level of the winners, he's putting himself there. It's just a matter of staying there. So again, we talked about earlier, before this championship started, this was probably the deepest MXGP field we'd seen in a decade. I think that's proving to be true.
Yeah, I'm going to mention one rider, Oriol Oliver, Sean Simpson's Gabriel SS24, KTM Factory Juniors team. Obviously, he got a whole shot in Andalucia and just tried to run up front as long as he could, but eventually faded back, understandably. He got 9th overall on the weekend in his rookie season for a private team and a satellite team, and for somebody, still building. I think that was pretty impressive of him to be able to sort of make those gains in the last couple of races.
Unbelievable. I mean, he was in front of Febvre for 10 minutes? That was really something to behold. And I don't know that everybody can appreciate how hard it is to do what he was doing. The pace and the intensity at the beginning of the race. It's not like Febvre was laying up being like, no, we're good here. Febvre, every single corner he's behind Oliveira is like, I gotta go. I can't be behind this guy. Right. And that's not an insult to Oliveira, but Febvre knows that if he's behind Oliveira, that's not a good sign. That is not where he needs to be in this particular race. So for him to be able to sustain that, really, sure, there was a little bit of pressure, but it wasn't like he was a roadblock and there were 7 bikes behind him. He was holding his own. I couldn't believe what I was watching, to be fair. Good for him. That was, not anything I expected. Not that I would know enough to kind of have a great idea of what he's capable of, but I didn't think it was that. Yeah.
No, I think he's he's fitting in quite nicely, and hopefully that is a sort of a continuation, in terms of his MXGP trajectory,
Yep.
Before we talk MX2, let's just have a quick word from our sponsors, FMF, of course, exhaust pipes. The Flying Machine Factory, who for more than 50 years now have been a massive part of the motocross scene, not just here in Europe, but also in America as well. Always striving for perfection, always innovating. Kai de Wolf, the Nissan Husqvarna rider, obviously uses the FMF pipes as well. He got the Foxhole shot in the second race on Sunday in Trentino, so if it's good enough for him, hey, could be good enough for you. So give those guys a shout, FMF. Let's move on to MX2 then. Simon Längenfelder, another rider, strange weekend really, because prior to this weekend, he had not finished outside of the top 3. And all of a sudden, Trentino happens, and 6th overall. Was a little bit kind of surprised, really. He said that the first race caught him out with the rain because we had a massive rainstorm. But what do you get, 10-3 at the weekend? So, and he's seen his lead now cut to 3 points. We'll talk about Sasha in a moment. But Simon Längenfelder, was that kind of the wake-up call that he needed just to sort of say, actually, I've been very, very comfortable, maybe just too comfortable. I can't afford to switch off and be complacent because somebody like Sasha will come in and pounce.
It was perplexing. I have no answer for kind of what was happening there. I was hoping you might have some insight, because really, when you look at the championship, he's been the class of the field most of the time. He's been able to kind of work through situations, good start, bad start, no real urgency. At the other rounds, I watched him, and it looked like a guy that knew he was the best guy almost every situation.
He was able just to sort of... Yeah, and he was able to sort of sit there in third and then chase a win in the last 10 minutes, or sit there in 5th and chase, second in the last 10 minutes. And just very confident and assured of him and who he is and what he's capable of. And he said this after the first race in the pre-grid interview when, he basically just said the rain kind of caught him out. The track was really, really slippery, and you could see he was riding tight.
Mm-hmm. 10th, though?
Whereas, from there, you're just like, dude, all you need to do is relax. But maybe he just thought, I can't afford to make any mistakes. I'd rather just finish here rather than have my hands full of, mud on my gloves and whatever else. But he definitely looked tight in that first race. And
10th is,
his comments were, I'm not really too fussed. I know my confidence. I know my abilities. I know what I'm capable of. So, 'cause I think the question was, do you need a good result going into the break, to sort of bounce back from this? And he was like, no, not really. So on one hand, he's still very confident, but yeah, third was some kind of bounce back.
Right.
But it wasn't vintage Simon, first time off the podium this year.
Yeah, in a track that I kind of thought he would be really good at. He's so good in hard pack conditions. And Trentino's a track that's, I think, I haven't ridden it, of course, I've been there. It looks like a track that is difficult to feel comfortable on. It's narrow, it's kind of stony surface, inconsistent conditions. I just assumed he would be really good this weekend because he's been fantastic all year long. I think the second moto to get third is fine. The first moto, 10th, even if you're not feeling comfortable or you're worried about 10th is not a performance I would think he would really do if all things were okay. So again, one weekend out of, 19, 20, whatever this championship is, not a huge deal, but it was more of a head scratcher than anything else. It wasn't a reason to hit the panic button or anything like that. It was more confusing. I had more questions than I did answers for him. And again, still has the championship lead, all those things. But what he's done, he's allowed Sasha Coenen back in this championship, fully back in this championship. And I don't know how he views that. Maybe he's not concerned. Maybe he feels that Sasha will make too many mistakes to be in this all the way through. I don't think Sasha feels that way at all. And now he's got someone who is, I don't know that there's a hungrier racer on planet Earth than Sasha Coenen, and he is back in this thing.
Well, second in points, he reduced the gap from 24 to 3 last weekend. He won the qualifying race and the 2 races. First time he's ever done that. So going 1-1-1. And for those who aren't aware, and you're watching this MXGP podcast for the first time, the qualifying race is on Saturday. They determine the grid position for both races on the Sunday. But at the same time, the first 10 positions carry World Championship points. So 10 for the win, 9, 8, 7, 6, 1 point for 10th place. So, for Sasha Coenen, his kind of strength this year has been the qualifying race wins because we've had 5. He's won all 5, which means he's taken the maximum 50 points to his World Championship tally at the moment. When you look at Simon Längenfelder this year, that's just 31 points. So, when you think Längenfelder won the championship last year by virtue of his qualifying points that he got more than Kai de Wolf, Sasha Coenen is already sort of, nearly 20 points clear in that respect.
Yeah, they're almost hidden points. I don't think a lot of people pay enough attention to them. They look at the results on Sunday, and but it's
he went 1-1, 50 points, but actually it was 60 over the weekend if you win the quali race.
Yep. It's becoming more and more of a kind of focal point, and I don't know what you do about that. I don't know that there's a way to kind of game out how to be better on Saturday, but they are a probably underreported storyline in these championships, and Sasha is making the most of it. I don't know that Sasha can be consistent enough all the way through to win this championship. Maybe, but that's been the question all along with Sasha. But that was a hell of a performance in Trentino, and really the weekend before as well. He's been doing a great job. It's just, is he going to throw his motorcycle down the racetrack here and there that cost him too much?
Well, it's funny you say that because he was nearly almost perfect this weekend in Trentino, but there was still that moment in that right-hander where he tipped it over from the lead, almost threw it away. But fortunately, it was just a tip over rather than a typical sort of, I'm going to bounce myself down the track and my bike and hopefully we're both okay kind of moment. But yeah, talking about the qualifying points, actually, in terms of MXGP, for instance, Lucas Coenen has 44. Jeffrey Herlings, who's second, only has 22. Yet the gap at the top of the championship is only 4 points now. So, it's kind of working for Sasha in MX2 that he's 19 more than Simon from the Saturday races. And then obviously you've got Lucas, who's 144, twice as many as Jeffrey, but Jeffrey's only 4 points behind him in the championship. Yeah,
it's one of those things where you go decades of, world championship racing and you don't have this nuance. And then you throw it in for, what we're on 4 or 5 years now of this. it's a completely different dynamic that I don't think a lot of people think about enough, and the impact it's having on these championships. Maybe 2026 is that year where everybody's like, wow, Saturday decided this championship, and maybe in both classes. But yeah, and I don't know really what to make of that. There's no real reason why Saturday should be any different other than maybe for Jeffrey. And he's mentioned this a couple times that he doesn't get those last 10 minutes on Saturday to make up for any mistakes, where he can just kind of use his fitness as a kind of a lethal weapon in the last 10.
The weekend that Sasha Coenen just had, would you say that's a weekend where he finally starts to believe he can be a serious contender now? You know, that it's almost like the monkey off the back, that solid 1-1-1, and maybe just like a sort of light bulb moment where actually that's not so difficult to do, you know, and if I keep riding like this, get to France, could have another one of those weekends. He does that, he's coming away leading the championship, and so on and so on.
The problem for me with Sasha is not a confidence thing. I think he believes he can win every time out. I don't think he has any fear of any rider or self-doubt at all. What I see that's problematic is I don't know that he always realizes when a crash is coming, right? Like when you're on the broadcast, you talk a lot about there's a warning sign, you better heed that because a crash is imminent if you don't. I don't know that Sasha is always reading those signals for what they are. I don't know that he knows that he's on the limit sometimes. So he'll just be doing his thing, think everything's fine. And we're both like this, like, back it down, and then all of a sudden you see him on the ground. And to me, that is something that he still needs to figure out. And when you look at his twin brother, I don't know if it's the 450 or if it was something that he consciously realized, but Lucas doesn't, even though he crashed this weekend, and it's not a great weekend to bring this up, you don't see Lucas having these gigantic crashes anymore. And he kind of understands the limit a little bit more, where I don't know that Sasha's made that turn yet. And that, to me, that's going to be the difference. Every other tool is there, but understanding when to push and when to not is still something I think he's working on.
A 450 will do that to you, though, won't it?
Yeah.
Respect the boundaries. I mean, Sasha is just obviously fantastic weekend in general. From that side, I think, he's just been, pretty impressive in that respect. From the obviously we talked about the fact that it was, is it a weekend that he can start to believe. In terms of his competition, Simon Längenfelder, those guys, they'll be on notice now, won't they? Knowing that they can't just rely on the fact that Sasha may be in it for one race and not the other one. What I do like about Sasha is he's got this ability to sort of control Alt-Delete. No matter how big the crash, just picks himself up like it never happened, until the next one. And he's almost got like a memory of a goldfish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's not scared either, but sometimes that can be your Achilles heel.
Yeah. I think everyone else is far more scared than Sasha is of Sasha crashing. What I do like for Sasha in this championship is that really the only person I think that can be excellent enough, consistently enough, is Längenfelder. I don't think that Liam or Vialle or whoever you want to insert in that conversation can be good enough, often enough, to match what Sasha's going to throw up on the board a lot. Because Simon's the only one that's going to be there all the time. And if Simon has more weekends like Trentino, that's problematic because he's the one that I'm counting on to be there every single time that can offset the winning that Sasha will do. So I do think it's between those two. I don't think anybody else can be good enough, often enough to be in this fight. So again, I think it's going to be a two-man fight, and barring injury, right? That can change the entire narrative, but I have it between those two.
What about Guillaume Ferrez? Obviously back up to third in the championship at the moment after his third podium of the season. All three of those have been second place, incidentally. He's got a couple of race wins so far. Triumph have made big gains. We've seen that because obviously his teammate Camden McLellan has also, won a race and is taken the championship leader's red plate so far. But even for Guillaume Ferrez, could have had 4 podiums, not just the 3, because he fell from second in Sardinia on the final lap when he was second overall. He fell to 10th in that race, and that obviously cost him that podium. Where can he improve? And why don't you see him as a challenger to Simon or Sasha if they're the only two that you think are going to be fighting for the championship?
I just think it's not yet, and that's it. He's taken a gigantic step, and McLellan earlier in the season had taken a gigantic step. I don't think it's a never going to happen. I just don't think they're quite there yet. I have, Simon coming off his first world championship. He's been a contender for several years now. I think he's just kind of figured out what this championship takes. Sasha, I think, is still learning, but Sasha's top end speed and ability to win is really powerful, because if he doesn't crash, you can almost guarantee he's going to be first or second in almost every race moving forward, because he has so much speed to burn. Perez is working on it. Like, he has made a huge stride forward. I just don't know that 2026 is the year for him to go be world champion. And that is just something he is continuing to improve. And the storyline from where he's come from to where he is nothing short of miraculous. It's just more of a not quite yet storyline for me, not a never going to happen.
Yeah. What about Liam Everts? We'll try and get through these, in quick time. Fourth in points. He hasn't finished lower than ninth, as in he's been a top 10 race finisher every race. You expect that. He's a factory rider at Husqvarna, but he's also not been 100% healthy, though, has he? We've learned in the last couple of weeks that he's been carrying some kind of foot injury or fracture. So he's going to be needing this 3-4 week break just to get healthy, get up to speed, get some intensity back into his riding. And if we see that, do we expect to see him on the podium in France and regularly after that throughout the rest of the season? And the same as Perez. Can he be a title contender? He's 42 points off the lead at the moment, which in the greater scheme of things isn't a lot when there's 60 points up for grabs per weekend.
Yeah, for sure. William could be in the fight. It's just going to, I just think there's been and will be too many setbacks that keep him out of any championship conversation. Being ill earlier in the season, not his fault. Injured foot now, not his fault. Racing doesn't care if it's your fault or not. It's punitive regardless, and you will lose. If you have a bad weekend across 3 races, you will lose championship defining points in one weekend. So the crashes, the sickness, the injury, all those things just feel like a little bit of a bridge too far to overcome to be a championship contender. That doesn't mean he can't win races on individual weekends, because I do think he will do that. And I do think that Guillaume Perez will do that. And I think McClellan will do that. We'll get into some races that are more conducive to his skill set. He'll be back. But it's more of the body of work that it takes to be good across all disciplines and all 3 races on a weekend and continually put yourself at the front. That is what I think separates the top 2 from the rest of them, which will have their moments. They're going to have great weekends, but then they're going to have a weekend where they only put up, 18 points across the entire weekend, and that will hurt you badly. Do that a couple times and you'll find yourself 50 points down before you even know what happened. And I think we're already starting to see that separation. 3rd place in the championships, 42 points down. Like, we're already seeing that develop.
Yeah. Camden McClellan, obviously 5th in the championship since his red plate in Andalucia, where he also won his first Grand Prix. Can't seem to catch a break at the moment. He had a big crash that we didn't see on TV in race 2 in Switzerland. He was not 100% fit when he came back in Sardinia, although he did get a 3rd in race 2 there. He had an off weekend in Trentino again, just wrong place, wrong time moments, little errors here and there. Fair to say, I think he, along with quite a few other riders, are going to use this next 3-4 weeks just to try and hit that reset button, come out swinging again by the time we hit France, where you've got no time for errors. Once this break is done, we're literally 3 in a row, week off, 3 in a row, week off, 3 in a row, week off, 2 in a row, week off, the final 3 races, a week off, and then for those who are in it, the Motocross of Nations. So those races come thick and fast after this break.
Yeah, I think he and Mathis Villan are both have to be disappointed because they have the potential. And it hasn't always been their fault. Yes, Camden crashed. But then Mathis Villan, that chain derailment, I think most of us assume he would have won that individual race. He looked solid. He had a nice lead. So it's kind of a what could have been so far. McClellan looked like he might be the class of the field at times in this championship. But then you look up and the championships seems far off at this point. And then Villan, I think everybody has these high hopes. And maybe he comes out in France, his home GP, and wins one of the races. Like, that's certainly possible. Like, we've seen him on hardpack be as good as anybody in the field. So maybe we're a little bit premature being disappointed in Villan, but thinking big picture, they've already, 5 or 6 races in, kind of let things get away from them where they were looking. I'm sure they were both looking at this like, I'm going to be a championship fight. I'm going to be in the fight. And now we're, a third of the way through the season or less, and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily trending that way.
Well, there are 6 riders who have finished on the podium so far. Mathis Valin was the latest rider who got that 3rd place in Trentino just. Prior to that, his performances were 6th overall round 1, 4th round 2, 11th, obviously, with the chain issue in Switzerland, 12th in Sardinia.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I think there was a technical in the first race on the first lap in Sardinia, so obviously that will explain the 12th there. But again, needs to reset. But one thing that he's got in his favour is he's going to be motivated coming into his French Grand Prix, the next round 6, at the end of May. His speed's there, though, isn't it? If he gets a good start, I think he's definitely going to be a podium challenger. But you don't think that he could be a World Championship contender?
I don't think this year. I just think the 2 guys at the front are going to be there too often. But I do think he's going to have race wins. The kid is incredibly good. He should have already had one by all accounts. I do believe he would have won that race in Switzerland, at least that individual race. So I think it's coming. I've seen too much from him to not think so. Like, he has too much speed, too much talent. His starts, although hit and miss, he can hole shot at any given time. So I do think whether it's in France, whether it's in Germany, there are going to be tracks where the conditions work for what he does well. So I think it's coming. I just don't think it's going to be there often enough, and there are going to be too many inconsistent rides, because I think most weekends you're going to look up and see Längenfelder and Sasha on the podium. And if you're not there with them every single time and you start 50 plus points down, how are you going to do anything about it? That's what's a problem for a lot of these guys.
I want to talk about 2 more riders. Yannis Racelis, obviously 125 European champion 3 years ago, then had a year off through injury. 2024, bounced back in 2025 as the European 250 champion. Comes up rookie season. He's currently 6th in the championship at the moment. It's been quite a solid start, hasn't it? Because he's made some good starts. He's ran sort of top 3 before just fading back a little bit. He's been 5th overall on 3 occasions. He's had a 3rd in a qualifying race. He's been fastest in the time practice, which gave him gate pick for the qualifying race in Sardinia. Seems to be building every week. How far off of his how far off the first podium for Yannis Racelis do you think? Do you think this will come in the second half of the year if he continues that build?
Yeah, I think so. It just has to be opportunistic in this class, because you don't know when the door is going to open. And when you have younger racers with inconsistent results, the way we've seen Vialle have issues and Liam Evers have issues and Längenfelder have issues in Trentino, there's opportunity in those moments, and you have to be your best self and identify when that opportunity is there and step up. And whether that's in the coming weeks or maybe at his home GP in a few weeks, you never know. But I do like what I see from him. And if it's a tale as old as time, you continue to get good starts and your riding is improving, you're going to find yourself in a good position eventually. And then you can take advantage of it. So for him, if I was advising him, I would say we have to get the starts, because that is going to unlock everything else. If you're fighting in 10th on the first lap, it's just going to be too difficult of a situation to battle forward against these guys to get to the podium. But if you get hole shots like he has at times in this championship, then your life gets a lot easier, because there's going to be chaos behind you. That we know that MX2, that's always the case, and you don't have to deal with any of that. So I've been really impressed, and I do think there are brighter days ahead, and it's something that Yamaha and their MX2 program can build around. They can build around him.
Yeah. I think also he's kind of dragging his brother along a little bit as well, because obviously both riders inside the top 10. The final rider I want to talk about, Julius Mikula, in the same way that we spoke about Oriol Oliveira in MXGP a few moments ago. Julius Mikula, Osichka MX team, KTM, of course, Czech team. He's a Czech rider from the Czech Republic. He's 11th in points at the moment, but his last 4 races, so on a Sunday, he's had a 5.8, a 5.4, so he's gone 6th overall in Sardinia, 4th overall in Trentino. We're just talking a small satellite team operating out of a couple of sprinter vans. They've got the easy ups and things like that. And a rider and a team that seem to be growing in confidence with every race that's going by. And, some people say MX2 is maybe a little bit weaker this year and all the rest of it. But even still, you've still got to be in it to win it. And you've still got to put yourself up there. And he's getting good starts at the minute. And he's now starting to believe in himself. It's been a good sort of solid couple of weekends for Julius Mikula.
Yeah, and this is a rider I haven't followed very much, but when he's doing what he's doing, you have to sit up and pay attention, period. And these type of rides will find him on factory equipment. You continue to do what you're doing on a satellite team, and whether it's Honda HRC or Ducati or Yamaha, somebody's going to say, hey, this kid legit. What could he do with all the resources that we have at our disposal versus what he has at the moment? So great job to him. I'll tell you the one thing I watched from him that I was like, ooh, I like that, was when he was battling with Längenfelder and Trentino. He didn't give him an inch. He was not scared of the moment. He was not reading the name on the back of the jersey, the number one plate, any of that. He's like, no, I'm fighting for position right now. And that is something that most riders wouldn't do, especially younger riders. They would be really deferential right there. And he wasn't, which is a good sign.
Yeah, no, it's good to see, and good to see some new talent coming through as well, rather than just talking about the same riders at the top end of the field. Absolutely. Well, look, I think we're about done. It's been a good one. Obviously, the next GP is going to be the MXGP of France at La Capelle-Maraval. That's going to be at the end, the last weekend of May, or the penultimate weekend, 23rd, 24th. Yep. Jason, you're going to be there.
Be there.
Your first visit of the season?
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it? A brand new track you've not seen as well?
Yep. Yeah, basically, I'll be there once a month for the next few months. So pretty excited for that. I've never been to La Capelle. So that'll be, I really like visiting new venues. That's fun for me. I've been not as many as you, but a lot. And so it's fun to go to the new ones.
Yeah. And obviously all around the area, I don't know when you're planning on getting in. I know you like to have one day just having a look around, sightseeing and things like that. Not too far away from the track. Great venue, great location, place called Rocamadour. This kind of city, this town that's built up in the cliff face and things like that. It really is spectacular down there. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You'll probably join us on the studio show as well on Saturday as one of the guests. I'm hoping to get Maxime Gros and Jackie Vimond on there as well. Vimond is celebrating 40 years as a 250 world champion. He was France's first ever world champion as well. He now works for the Honda HRC Petronas side as a rider coach. He's worked with a lot of riders in the past as well. So it'd be great to have those guys on, hopefully. Jackie, yes, for sure. Maxime, we're not sure yet. But that's it for us. JT, enjoy the last 3 races of Monster Energy Supercross. And we look forward to seeing you at the end of May at the MXGP of France.
Good luck finding something to do over the next 3 weeks.
Oh, there's plenty to do. I was just looking at the garden a moment ago. The stuff that you don't normally do, Yeah. But no, great having you on. And enjoy the last 3 races, and we'll see you at the end of May. And that's it from me, Paul Malin, from Jason Thomas. We'll see you again in about a month from now, and we'll talk all of this and a little bit more, I'm sure. But see you next time. Catch all the racing on MXGP-TV.com. If you've got the package anyway, of course, you can watch on demand. You can watch our studio shows. You can watch Behind the Gate and everything live. So, keep following us and keep liking the podcast. See you next time. Bye for now.
MXGP, the podcast.